Welcome back, race fans, to the El Camino Beano. This is time trials number 2 of 2.
Thanks to our tournament sponsor, Turbo Taco. You shove it down, and we shove it into overdrive.
My name is Aaron Tate.
And fans, we're happy you're here. This is Richard Gere. There are 20 more cars that are going to hit the track today for their time trials, and we're going to find out who will be the top 32 racing competition.
I need to pass on the tacos today.
Ha! Why am I not surprised? Hey race fans, this is Richard Gere and I'm sorry to break in, but I want to talk about Big Mike here. Watch how his car bounces up and down from the start gate and it just gets worse and worse until he crashes. You're actually watching runs 4, 5, and 6, even though 3 is the maximum. Now, the good news is that Mike will get to race in an exhibition race. But Mike, we wanted to present to you right now the Lowrider Award. Congratulations. Well, race fans, that concludes the time trials. We've got 40 drivers. Now, the bottom 8 that you see in gray, they will be having their own exhibition race. And that actually is the next race coming up soon. But let's talk about the 32 that have moved on into competition. These will be group races, 4 rounds, and the top 2 move on. Group 1 here is headlined by King Jester, and Group 8 is headlined by VRT 3K. Then we move over to Group 2, which will be headlined by Milestone Diecast, and Group 7 by Old Sarge Race Group. We slide down to Group 4, headlined by James Ironbeard and Ironbeard Customs, and then Group 5 by Chase Family Racing. And then the last of the group races will begin with Group 3 and Johnson Hot Wheels Garage, followed by Group 6, and it's headlined by Arlo. Place your bets on who's going to advance to the Sweet 16.
Are you tracking?